to the BoomBastiCAST. Today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about, we just seen the Midsommer movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to discuss that compared to Hereditary, which came out before it.
Yep.
Ari Aster, filmmaker extraordinaire. We're going to call this segment Ari or Are We Not?
Ooh.
So
Spooky.
we'll start off with Hereditary. Hereditary, I thought was a masterpiece at the time. I know there was certain people that weren't quite as fans, but there was also another big group of people that loved it like I did. Hawk, where do you fall in that category? You liked it, right?
Yeah. I was a big fan of Hereditary. I loved the editing, the shooting, and the story itself, because I didn't know where it was going from beginning to end. And unfortunately, nowadays, when you're watching a lot of films, after the first few minutes, you know exactly how it's going to unfold, who's going to live, who's going to die. It's pretty straightforward. But Hereditary wasn't, and that was a refreshing experience watching that movie. Plus, also the editing of the play with lights and everything that they had in the film was extraordinary. I was a big fan. I really liked how it flowed and all that.
Yeah. It was Ari's first feature-length feature film. He did short films before that, none of which I've seen, but I'm sure they're probably interesting. Hereditary, there's some moments in that film that were just super creepy. I could only compare to The Exorcist, realistically. The part of her sawing at her neck was really creepy.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really creepy ghouls in there. It ends, the imagery of the ending with the dude almost like Jesus-like. I thought was really, really creepy. It was a cool movie where everybody kind of goes insane within it. I know like Gabriel Burns plays the father and stuff, and he lives up to his last name, Barry Burns. That was a really cool scene. I liked how that unfolded because it was just kind of like, for a moment you start to think that the whole movie is in her head. You know what I mean? Toni Collette.
Yeah.
Who did a great job. All the other kids did a great job too. The daughter had a really unique look that I thought was, worked really well with the film. I know they had the son in the film complained about the PTSD after the movie was done, whether that was just a great marketing tool or if he was really just a sensitive guy that couldn't handle a fake movie being shot around him. But yeah, masterpiece. Current modern day masterpiece, I'd say Hereditary is. I like the whole vibe of the Hereditary thing. I was lucky enough to kind of see it blindly without any spoilers or anything like that, which is always a plus, always a nice deal. I recommend seeing any film that way. You get into it, you don't really quite know what you're getting into. I like the Hereditary, how it's passed down. It's like passed down tradition. The grandmother was, she was the leader of this cult, and she groomed her grandson to eventually take on the physical form of the Messiah or whatever you will that they prayed to. There's the very famous scene 20 minutes into the film. There's a big, I can spoil it because it came out like 2 years ago now, but the daughter gets killed. They're at she goes to a party with the brother, and she either eats cake or peanut butter or something she's allergic to, and her throat starts to close up. So the brother leaves the party. He's driving her home to get her inhaler or driving her to the hospital to get out an insulin shot or whatever she'd need to like calm her stuff up. And, she puts her head out the window to get some air, and then,
pow!
Her head comes off.
Yeah.
Which is a very shocking moment. You do not see that coming. That is, I remember just being blown away by that when I seen that, because the last thing I was expecting
was
that, which was nice. Nice to drop a big bomb like that.
But
in the film.
But I think the biggest and most jarring thing, at least for me, in that scene, wasn't the fact that she had her head out and she lost her head.
Mm-hmm.
That was, but the brother's reaction.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Now, I mean, of course, one's first reaction, at least I would think, would be, either freaking out, call, or just, like calling the ambulance or something, even though it's obvious that she's dead. But, and it was kind of more of like he was in shock, and then he just drove home, and then he got out of the car and he just went to bed, which was such. I mean, it was such a kind of a jar to me to watch that, because I'm like, I would think any normal person's reaction would not be, okay, my sister just got killed. I will drive her decapitated corpse home, leave it for mom to find, and then, go and take a nap.
He was high on drugs.
Well,
so you gotta take that into accountability. And he very, you can tell in his face, he very much so wants to believe that was a nightmare. And then the moment where I don't think he even sleeps, I think he just lays in bed, and I think that they open up that shot on a shot of him like clutching his pillow, like with his eyes open, and then you hear the mother walking down the hall or something, and then open the door and. And then I think he closes his eyes and like cries or something, because then it becomes fully aware the reality of what happened. Yeah, but I always thought that was super weird. His stance on that. That was more. I'd almost say that what he did was almost normal compared to what the parents did, where they were like, it was like a weird situation where, like, the only discipline he got was the mother was angry with him for a little bit. You know what I mean? But police were never brought into it. You think it would be?
Yeah.
You think that would be a situation? But yeah, regardless, and then she pops up. I mean, the effects were really great in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a lot of things that hit directly, on the 100% level of making it. Like Huck said, the editing was great, the directing was great, the acting was great. The set dressing, the locations were great.
Yeah.
I really like that movie. Like I said, that's one of the most, probably the more modern films I've seen that I really, really liked a lot. Is there anything I should really want to say about?
Just going back with the editing, I think one of the most cool editing things where you have, I think it's the little girl at one end of the hall and starts running, and then all of a sudden it's the grown man, grabbing, I think it's the mother.
Yeah.
And that within itself, I mean, just totally, you didn't expect it. It was all of a sudden, and it probably was one of the most, at least for me, quick, jarring aspects of the film, which, was really good because of the fact that, you weren't expecting it, and it was so quick that, you really, it was a very effective jump scare for me.
Right. Yeah, there's a scene when the sister ran into the closet, and then in the closet there was like that weird naked guy. Which was creepy. You're seeing a lot of nudity and nakedness in horror movies right now. It's bringing it back to like The Sentinel back in like the early 80s when that came out, of there were naked ghostly people in that. There's more of it. There was more naked stuff in Midsommer. We just recently seen the trailer for it too, which the whole trailer is kind of just one scene from the movie, and it includes nudity in it with an older lady. And I think the creepiness of it is these people are like possessed at the time of their nudity, and I think it's part of the humiliation that the demon or whatever you will that possesses is just humiliating the body. Like in The Exorcist. there with Reagan, it the way that it, the body bruises and it starts to fall apart is I consider the humiliation of the host. You know what I mean? Like that's one way. Where you're not just in the mind, but now in the physical form. You're interrupting its flow of life. But I like that element. It's more of a common thing that we're seeing in horror nowadays is the nudity aspect, and you know, to go into the Midsommer thing, there's a part with nudity in there, multiple parts, but there's a part, and there was teenagers in the theater, which teenagers are always a little taken back by and some adults, but the teenagers, whenever they see nudity, they always have especially on an older person, you always get the chuckle and the laugh, but it's that nervous chuckle and laugh. I think that visual is just so creepy to them, because it's usually in the confinements of like a possession or some weird situation going down where you find it. So like they're it's like they say, when you have that release, that comedic release, like it's the yin and the yang of the horror and the comedy, where you hit them with a scare and get them on, get them going, and then you give them a little comedy to release the tension in the moment. And I think that's kind of the way they act towards that. I think is where they laugh, because it just releases the tension, because they're not going to want to act scared in front of the women they're with and stuff, or the ladies, the girls, the teenage women. So like they just let out the chuckle to let the world know they're a little creeped out by something. But with Midsommer, we've seen Midsommer, I think, last weekend.
Yep.
Very good film. Got more praise than Hereditary did. It was a cool story of there's a couple. It opens up with our lead actress is like a girl who is going out with a gentleman, but she's having a lot of home problems with her family, which gets even worse as the story progresses. I really like the first 10 minutes, the way that the writing of it was really good. The way they kind of, in that short time, pulled you into her world of madness, so you can get a real feel for the turbulence in her life. And then the relationship between her and the guy in it, I thought was really nicely done up, where the guy's kind of like, a go with the flow type thing. He's trying to get, it's weird because he's trying to get out of the relationship. When he talks to his friends, he's like trying to get out of the relationship, but when he's with her, he's all for it, which is, a typical guy thing you see a lot. People like to go to their pals and complain about their ladies and stuff, and then when they're with their ladies, they're the lap dog on a leash next to them and big smile with their tongue hanging out. You see a lot of that stuff on the Facebook. You know what I mean? Yeah. But so you take this cat, I thought that was really cool the way they developed that relationship. I think because the movie was really based off of relationships, and it becomes full circle at the end, where the whole film's kind of a journey for this person who lost their family, finding a new family. Like that's the morale of the story that I kind of got out of it. The characters I thought were likable for certain people that you didn't think were supposed to be likable. I found they were pretty likable, which I don't really, you don't often get that with horror movies. Usually the people set up to be killed, or usually people, they don't want, they write them to be unlikable. So when they die, you're like, yeah, you're applauding it and you're a big fan. But with these guys, they were kind of like everyday, people that you think you would know in your everyday life. The only thing that the boyfriend really did that I didn't like was when he tried to steal that dude's thesis.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was pretty scumbag of him. Yeah. What'd you think?
Well, I have to say, one of the things that I like about Midsommer, and also which also ties into Hereditary, is I really like Ari with his films, in that I like to call them like character-driven horror, because every character in it okay, has a backstory, has real personality. Now, as Matt said, a lot of times when you have horror films, you have people set up just to get killed. So usually they're not likable, or they're stereotypes. This is the stoner. This is the jock. This is the virgin. This is the slut. And while those are fun and all that, I mean, even the kind of the comical character of the group, okay, who is there to get laid and have fun, and he he plays that up. But I mean, there's a point where he sees a girl and he makes a comment about how he would really like to do her and all that, and then later on she comes up and she kind of takes him away, and he then of course kind of turns into the unsure, I don't know, because I mean he talks a good game, but he's still he's a young guy that probably doesn't have as much experience as he keeps on claiming that he does.
This is the comic relief guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he came off like a dude that was kind of like, he's got no game. He was being funny so people would like him type deal.
Yeah.
It's like an insecurity mechanism, you know what I mean?
Which gives him a even more interesting character than, the usual, oh, he's the funny guy, so he's the second to the last to die, or something like that. And the thing is that every character, even there's this girlfriend and boyfriend that comes with another guy who's part of the community. Now, you don't know much about them. You really don't, because they're not really part of the main group that we've been focusing on. And what's great with it is there's a short little scene where the guy who brought it makes a comment like, oh yeah, she and I dated, and then this guy comes along, and then she then went with him, and of course her response is like, we kind of went on one date and I didn't even know it was a date. And of course that just sums up, okay, it's obvious that this guy had a thing for her, she never had a thing for him, and the two of them, definitely the girl and her boyfriend, her real boyfriend, seem to really have a connection. And when there's a scene where there's an elderly couple that go up to a top of a cliff, and they decide, and they throw themselves down as part of a ritual, and to kill themselves. And out of everyone, those two are the only ones shouting, "Don't do this! Don't jump!" And showing that while the people that we've been following since the beginning of this movie, it's more of like shock, but none of them are really shouting or trying to tell them not to do it. They're kind of just like, huh, this is interesting. I know that I should be saying something, but I'm not.
But from the second that they arrive at this compound, it's nothing but their drugs. They're given drugs immediately. With breakfast, they like drugs or mushrooms, and the hallucinogenic drugs are
being fed to
being fed to them throughout the whole thing, so it can clear their mind's eye, so to speak, and see this awkward vision of peace and community that they have. That scene with the elderly, sacrificing themselves up it would appear to us that they were killing themselves, but in their mind that was their birth, you know what I mean, into a better existence, an enlightened state. Effects wise, that was I will say that, like, when they jumped, the lady jumps first, and there's an effect where she hits head first, and she pops up, and her head's just demolished and devastated, and it's shot from really far back, so like that, choices of shooting like that are very wise. It makes it more effective, because you'd think for an effect shot you'd want to get up there close, and the fact that they were wide made it feel realer. But yeah, that effect was really gruesome. And then the gentleman jumps, misses the rock, breaks his leg, and they bring in a special holy hammer mallet to crush his face for him, to put him out of misery. which I think they were aiming for that to be the most intense of the scene. But I would say that that lady was probably the most intense of the scene, because when her head hit and it popped up and it was just complete devastation, like done, like finished.
Yeah.
I remember being vocal in the theater, being like, "Whoa," because it was just, it was one of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I like the whole vibe of it.
Yeah.
There was another. I know they were into inbreeding. Like they would
Yeah.
inbreed, and the babies that were like would come out deformed. They thought they were like some enlightened, you know, species of human.
Yeah.
Where and it wrote their history. Like I think they were the people that wrote the rules, which was weird. I thought that I seen the character was on the latest issue of Fangoria. He was the cover, so I thought he was going to be a little more in the film than he was. They really only showed him twice, but I
Yeah.
did hear that there's a director's cut coming out with another 30 minutes. So um, I think he'll probably dive more into him and maybe like some extended gore scenes and uh I know you liked the imagery a lot of like the pictures that they
Oh
showed
yeah.
of like the community, and in that there was some stuff that was dealt with like period blood,
Yeah.
and I know that there's like an old Italian like wives tale thingy where like you put your period blood in the gravy of whoever you want to marry, and like you win their heart or something. It's
Yeah.
like old weird folklore of I don't know,
Yeah.
Italian folklore or whatever. And so I think there'll be more of that in like the director's cut of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
But
mean,
it
yeah.
was a long movie in general. It was a little too long, I felt. I think it was like almost 3 hours, which for a big man is a tough sit. I'm not afraid to admit that.
Yeah.
But very good. I thought it was it was well done. I was in a comparison. I don't think it was as good as Hereditary, even though a lot of people are saying that it's a lot of people that shit all over Hereditary were praising this up to be the next big thing, and I give it credit. Like I said, a good movie, still a good movie, not
Yeah.
as good as Hereditary. I hold Hereditary up very high in my opinion of it, but you know, it really Midsommer really is the Wicker Man on drugs. As much as people want to say that it's not that, it really is. I mean, it's more than that, but it rides that line pretty well. Um, and I got to give kudos to a horror movie that is all done in the sunlight. You don't see too many of them. Like it was very original for the movies that are popping off right now. It was a very original horror film. And it was cool. It had the way they're always on drugs. If you look in, it's one of those movies you probably have to watch 2 or 3 times to fully digest, because there was a lot of weird little like little thing like she's wearing, they give her like a bouquet of flower
Yeah.
like for her head, and there's like
Yeah.
throughout the movie there's like a pulsating flower.
Yeah.
It's just it probably doesn't mean anything except for the fact that this whole thing's a trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They start to weed out her friends. What'd you take of that? Like when those people, like when the girls were taking the guys away, do you think that was for their own person because they liked them, or do you think that was more like, I felt it was more just to get to make to get her alone? Well, I think they knew. I think they knew going into it that they were going to attempt to make her
the Maid Queen.
The Maid Queen, yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, when it first started out, I wasn't sure, because I knew, of course, that they were going to probably be using them as sacrifices.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure. I mean, at first I thought maybe she was going to be like the ultimate sacrifice or something. But when she has that conversation with the guy that's part of the cult that brought her,
Yeah.
where he's talking to her about how he lost his family, but because he was in the commune, he never felt the loss.
Right.
Because he already had a family. So when his mom and dad died in the fire, he didn't have what she's having, where the big sense of loss.
Right.
And he was talking to her about how he wanted to try to share that with her. And early on, I kind of felt that he kind of had a thing for her. So when he had that conversation later on, I was like, okay, I see where they're going with this, and that they're going to kind of bring her into. So they're weeding her away from the other members of a group and kind of bringing her into the family. Because there was a conversation, I forget with whom, where they were talking about like the incestuous part to make these kind of profits for their own commune, but also they said, and we also bring in people from outside, to mate and to make sure that it's not just all brothers and cousins having sex with each other. So they bring in new blood and all that. And when I heard that, I was like, so I saw where they were going with the boyfriend, bringing in a little more, you know, uh, uh, DNA into the family. They drug him and have him have sex with one of the village girls, and of course bringing her in as the Maid Queen. Now, so that's another new gene pool that they're bringing and adding into their flock.
Yeah.
And that's where I saw Midsommar was. It was a lot of that kind of thing where they the reason that they have been around for so long is they keep on bringing in new people one way or the other, whether it's by force or convincing them to actually be part. They convinces her, but they manipulate the guy. And I thought that was really good. I mean, as Matt said, I agree with him that Hereditary, I think, is a better movie than Midsommer. Not saying that Midsommer is not a good movie, but the thing is that, as I said, as you keep going on watching that film, it early on you figure on what's going on. You figure out how everyone's being manipulated and what the end goal is. And of course, being a folk horror movie, you can't help but make connections between this and the Wicker Man and other things and all that. Hereditary, as far as I can think of, was kind of a new animal within itself. You didn't really have anything to compare to.
Right.
So that's why I think Hereditary is a better movie than Midsommar. But I definitely recommend checking that movie out because it's like I said, everyone's doing reboots and remakes, and they're like, well, there's no like new stories out there. I'm like, well, Midsommar is a perfect example. They took an old story. They took the folk horror that has been done before, okay, and they gave it a new twist. They added new elements to it. I mean, one of the things I loved about it was the fact that Ari really knows how to deal with imagery, and surprisingly, a lot of directors I find don't seem to understand that you can tell more with visuals than you can with people just saying, "Well, in 1802, the first guy that created this compound did this." I mean, like we were talking the period blood. I mean, that was all shown in like little folksy kind of uh, hand drawing, tableaus.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you see that early on. Okay, you know what it means, and then later on, it becomes part. The girl tries to do the love potion for the guy. So when that happens, you know exactly what's going on without a lengthy description of like, well, this is what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very interested to see what he follows Midsommar up with, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes for him. But I think he's got a good future ahead of him as long as he stays away from like superhero movies and stuff, and continues to do his thing with. He kind of has a little niche with the cult films right now. There's nobody else really doing cult themes, which is unfortunate because it's such like a good theme to jump into. It's so creepy in itself and realistic. I mean, it's a realistic thing. It's more common for that to be out there than a Freddy Krueger. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. I think I saw Freddy Krueger last night.
Maybe. Maybe you are Freddy Krueger.
I am Freddy Krueger.
But yeah, so definitely, both of them are great films, but I'd have to say that Hereditary is the better film. That could be very unpopular, opinion, but it's how I feel. Yeah, check it out. Enjoy.
Yep.
And we'll catch you on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST.
Peace.
Peace.